The choice before tyranny. Will we let oligarchs rule or take back America? House Speaker Mike Johnson says that California Governor Gavin Newsom should be tarred and feathered. Right. Because he's going along with protesters who object to Trump's fascist behavior. The vast majority of the political violence we've seen over the past 15 years has been promulgated by right-wingers, including assassinations. This culminated in Minneapolis over the weekend. Trump is inserting Marines into an American city over the objections of that state's governor, and has this little Korean-style military parade over the weekend. Next, he wants to give billionaires another $5 trillion tax gift that will be paid for by your children. And now he's changing the Veterans Administration rules so doctors and nurses can refuse to provide services to veterans who are registered as Democrats. Seriously, not making that up. How'd we get here? It's really started in 1976-78, when 5 corrupt Republicans on the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that money is speech under the First Amendment, the First Amendment protection of free speech, that applies to money as well as to actual words, and that corporations aren't just, legal fictions, they are persons. Now, prior to 1978, between 1932, when Franklin Roosevelt was elected, and 1948, Congress and the White House passed a hell of a lot of really great legislation that benefited the average person. It included, and here's the list, this is in my article today, legalizing unions, the minimum wage, banking protections, Glass-Steagall, reforesting America, this Civilian Conservation Corps, major power projects like the Hoover Dam, the TVA, et cetera, subsidized electricity in rural areas, Social Security, unemployment insurance, aid for dependent children, public housing, the 40-hour work week, and overtime rules, ending child labor, survivors benefits for orphans and widows, Job Corps, VISTA, Head Start, food stamps, outlawing discrimination in public accommodation and education, outlawing discrimination in the workplace, federal funding for public schools, Medicare, Medicaid, voting rights, Pell Grants, and other college subsidies, Housing and Urban Development Act, the Child Nutrition Act, school lunches. By 1978, when the Supreme Court decided that the oligarchs could own politicians, we were a pretty functioning democracy. Women had got to vote. Racial minorities were guaranteed the right to vote. But the Bellotti decision and its Buckley predecessor opened the door for billionaires and corporations basically to legally buy politicians, which floated Reagan into the White House in 1980 or 81 on a tsunami of corporate money, mostly oil and banking money. In the 44 years since the Reagan Revolution, Congress has passed not all that long list of legislation to help average people, but just 2 pieces of legislation. LIHEAP, the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, and FMLA, the Family and Medical Leave Act. That's it. I know it sounds mind-boggling when you put it in those terms, but, but you've been listening to the program for the last 22 years. I have been running a contest all this time for, one single piece of legislation sponsored by Republicans, passed with a majority of Republicans, signed by a Republican president into law since the Reagan Revolution, whose principal beneficiaries have been average working people or the poor, and basically nobody has won. I mean, there have been a couple of small pieces of legislation, but nothing of consequence, no major legislation. Even Obamacare was written by the Billionaire-funded Heritage Foundation, and it was basically a gift to the insurance, a $1 trillion gift to the insurance industry. So in 2011, when Jimmy Carter told me that the Citizens United decision was had turned America into an oligarchy, he wasn't kidding. I mean, he was absolutely right. Do you trust your deodorant? Most deodorants just don't work for us working guys. But then Mando rolled into town, ready to tackle all over odors before they even start. Mando created high-performance deodorant for whole-body odor control. Safe for your pits, packages, and feet. Mando's science-based formula is pH-optimized, capable of blocking odors before they even start. Deodorants you're used to using just mask odors or neutralize them after they form, but Mando is powered by mandelic acid, clinically proven to work all day long. Developed by doctors, it's hypoallergenic and skin safe for your sensitive parts. Use Mando all over and leave your odor worries behind. Give Mando a go and see why guys are loving it. If it's not for you, they'll gladly refund you within 60 days. Smell better longer with Mando. Get 20% off site-wide on your first Mando purchase with the code THOM, T-H-O-M, at shopmando.com. Plus, shipping is always free. That's 20% off site-wide for first-time customers with the code THOM at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Here we are now. Since 1981, since the beginning of the Reagan Revolution, and those of you old enough to remember America in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, but since the Reagan Revolution, basically at the federal level anyway, there's some good stuff been done in blue states at the state level, but since 1981 at the federal level, the entire country has been run of, by, and for, and to the benefit of the morbidly rich. And what the 99% in the bottom need has been basically irrelevant. CEO pay, for example, since 1,209%. Worker pay has gone up 15%. Reagan has, the Reaganism has transferred fully $50 trillion from the pensions and homes and savings accounts and paychecks of average working people into the money bins of the top 1%. Housing in the 50s cost twice the average annual salary. Today, it's closer to 10 times as much. I mean, this is full-blown oligarchy, and that's the danger. Oligarchy is a transitional form of government. Oligarchy never lasts. Oligarchy is basically when the country is run by the rich for the rich. And what happens is that the people stand up and fight back. They rebel. And typically in the early stages, this takes the form of what you call populism, where, somebody stands up and says, I'm here for you, for the people, for the populi, the Latin word for people, or the majority of the people. And had the Clinton machine not destroyed the Bernie candidacy in 2016, we would have had a populist counter-revolution. Bernie would have been president, and it would have stopped the Reagan Revolution. But the Clintonistas came in, and that was the end of that. And so what happened was we still got populism, but it was right-wing populism, which is a false or a phony kind of populism. I mean, the same thing happened in Germany in the 30s, by the way, or something very similar. And so this is this critical moment that we're facing right now. You've got Trump pretending to be a populist, and, his attacks on brown people, black people, Asian people, women, to white men in America, or at least about half of America's white men. That seems like populism. Oh, yeah, he's on our side. But really, Trump is just acting on behalf of his class, on behalf of the other billionaires. So if this continues, we are going to see America turn into a dictatorship. I mean, let's just be blunt about it. Oligarchy is a transitional form of government that eventually either leads to tyranny, as it has in Russia, as it has in Hungary, as it has in Egypt, as it has in Turkey, or reverses itself. The oligarchy diminishes, and the country is given back to the people. This is what happened in 1933, because the Republican Great Depression was so severe that the oligarchs really had no choice. They just had to back off because they had munged things up so badly. And frankly, I think, we're going to see something very similar over the next 3 years. I think we're going to see a real severe economic crisis. So what do we have? How do we stand up? Well, we saw this over the weekend. I mean, basically, the only thing that we have right now is the voice of the people, the vox populi, the voice of the people. And that's why we need to be calling Congress and saying, stop Trump, fire Kristi Noem, et cetera. We need to join progressive organizations, move on, indivisible, et cetera. Show up at the local Democratic Party in your community, speak out and speak up in every venue you can find. You know, we have a hell of a lot of work to do here. And we need to get on about it. Because if we don't push, then Trump is going to turn this country into a dictatorship. That is clearly his goal.